I'm Elisa Mortensen, and this is Undo Redo.
Hello, everyone. Who out there wants to manage ourselves better so that we can better manage others? That's what we're talking about this month, and that's why last week I did a how to manage our perfectionism tendencies, and today is about chaos to clarity, because I want to talk about our minds being in such chaotic states and how do we get back to a clear mind. So here we go. I wonder, are you a team leader? Are you a parent, a caregiver? Do you manage people in some way, and who do you oversee? I want you to think about them. And I want you to think about how you would rate yourself as a leader. How do you rate yourself? I bet you know some stuff. I bet you've experienced so many things. Maybe you're new to it. Maybe you're just like, you know what, I could use all the advice I could get. But you could probably hop on here and teach me and us and all the listeners what you've learned along the way. And I bet I could benefit from anything that you had to say too. So I've had raving reviews for my fall Undo Redo class, as well as they have faced themselves in new and really, really real ways. They've identified and overcame not only the way they were approaching things and how they were managing themselves, but how that what they were doing was not helping others improve. And now that they're able to improve themselves, they're able to improve others. And the beliefs they had about the situations they were in that were holding them in a stuck space, they were all false. Because our minds like to make up these stories to make sense of what's happening, right? And they're on a new and greater level of empowerment. And now they have some of their first steps in going through an actual process of like problem solving with one of their problems. And they have a more accurate form or framework in which to increase their growth instead of just spinning out in what actually wasn't even working, right? Because we all get stuck like thinking, no, this will work this time, and it just is not. We need to let go of the stuff that's not working. Some joined my membership after the class, and some just needed time to take a break from learning new stuff to really implement those things that they found. And I say kudos to both ways and always. Just go learn new things, try new things, get to new places, and keep going until you find what works for you. And this is for you as listeners. This is for you as my class that just finished. And the way I coach and my guidance has a great accuracy to leading you to find your unique answers, to empower you, and then in return, get better management, better behavior over the people that you are in charge of. And that truth that you find, your unique answers, sifting through all the thoughts of your mind can be really tricky. So there's not a one-size-fits-all answer, and you have your own unique lens through which you view the world. So come chat with me, because I can help you accurately navigate those things, and that's what I do. Today's episode, I'm going to take you through one way, or maybe several ways and ideas, to get from your chaotic mind to a clear mind, using emotions as your guide. You all know, and if you don't, I will tell you, we are meant to have all emotions, like the whole range of emotions. And they're our guide to what needs to be addressed next in our lives. Our thinking creates these feelings, and it shows us what boundaries need to be set in our day, in our surroundings, and within ourselves, what limits we need to have. And today I want to talk to you about the feeling of hopelessness specifically, because this is the one that really leads people into their dark places, and some depression is when they feel like helpless and hopeless. And so many of us are fighting and combating these feelings of helplessness in our situations, and we feel hopeless about ever being able to change it or find a way out of it. And that is where the basis of healing is. So my offer to you today is an antidote of building hope and seeing hope as a muscle. Okay? It's been proven that we're not born feeling hopeless. That somewhere along the way we've learned it. And to me, that's the best news ever, because we can unlearn it by learning more about hope. Right? We've learned about hopelessness. I don't like that feeling. That's all I need to know. It's totally teachable. Hope is totally teachable. So part of my course is planning for future obstacles. And in this, I have the class remember what we decided when we were in a calm state of mind. What you were going to do the next time you become upset. and then just adjusting, planning, trying, and gathering information each time you try. So strengthening those areas that have become weak and unresponsive, like hope muscle, is just weak and unresponsive due to lack of use. So you begin to use them again within a safe and guided container that I provide in my community in my class, but you too can implement this at home and have really great results just doing the same thing. You can use it with others that you oversee, that you're in charge of, to do the same thing. And so often we tell each other, like, he comes to you and says, oh, don't be sad, don't be mad, look on the bright side of things. But has anyone recommended that you find the emotion that is there and name it and find out what it's trying to tell you? Or do they just want you to skip it and go straight to happy? I know most people just want to skip it. That's why there's all the pills and all the quick fixes. But look up the hope scales on the internet. Go see where you rate on the hope scales. There are so many hope scales, and it's a scientific thing. Hope is measurable, and it's validated by research. The higher your hope score is, the more likely you are to graduate, predict how well you handle your challenging situations, recover from illness, get through divorce, all the challenges that you face in the upcoming days ahead with whatever happens to you, right? They're predictable outcomes based on this hope score. And I just think that's so interesting. So how do you do hope? What do you hope for? And how's your score? I looked this up, and I really think it would be interesting if you guys got back to me with your hope scores. I actually I meant to do mine before this and I never did. But look at how you do hope. Do you like hope for good weather? Is that a really good place to put your hope? And I'm only using this as an example to show you, if you hope for things you can't do anything about, like you would say that, like, you could just have somebody who passed away come back. Right? There's a space where if you spend a lot of energy hoping for something that's outside of your control, hope doesn't work for you in that place. You need to have some self-advocacy, like be there for yourself with hope, and hope for things that you have the ability and possibility to have influence over, and that the outcome can happen with your action. And this is very important. Something you hope for, you can have influence over the outcome. Hoping for things that are not, there's an acronym out there called SMART. Hoping for things that aren't smart, right? I didn't come up with it, but SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So those 5 things. Hoping for things that are smart can have you gain a specific thing that's measurable, that's attainable, and relevant. We're not hoping for things that can't be specific. It's just ambiguous. Brains don't do ambiguity. It'll remain stuck there. If it's measurable, so you can actually see it coming, you can incrementally get there. Attainable, it's time-bound to not just being for it endlessly and just spinning in that and never having it. It's something that you can have influence and control over. If not, it can drive you into that state of like clinical anxiety and depression. Hoping for the past to change is one of those things. Hoping for things that are out of our scope of influence and out of our scope of action and actually making it happen. It just keeps you in the state of despair and obsessing over it in very addictive ways that aren't healthy for you or that help you heal or move forward. It just makes our bodies sick. It settles in our bodies in distress and spinning in an uneasy way. And it might mean that you go down a path for a little while of hoping for something. If you want to continue focusing on that and you realize that it holds you captive and that you're helpless and devastated and you stay in that space for a little while, that's okay. But when it brings you down and when you're done with it and when you're ready, you can undo that. When you're ready, you can undo that devastating place that you're in. That's where I'm at. Hope is something that's teachable. And I want you to know, like, how is that done? We're going to have a redo of all the stuff I was just talking about because there are so many messages hope out there that it's teachable. And let's make a difference in people's lives. A difference in the levels of anxiety and depression that people are having. You can measure someone's hope before they learn more about how to handle it, and then measure it after they're shown and after they understand that they can have an influence on it. And you can see how their hope scale increases. Their symptoms of anxiety and depression go down, and their connection and belonging and that self-confidence and resilience rises. So learning how to navigate our feelings of hopelessness and despair and devastation at those times is a teachable skill. It doesn't mean it's going away anytime soon. We're all going to feel it. But to me, those moments of intense feelings of despair and hopelessness, that is what causes the suicidal ideation, well, in me anyways, is when I am in those moments where I think about escaping life in a harmful way or escaping my situation in a harmful way. But as I've been researching and I've been teaching myself, and as we're taught what hopelessness is, then we know how to ask ourselves, like, what is this despair about? What is this hopelessness about? Instead of just sitting in it, wondering how you can escape it in a desperate way, you can get some inspired feelings and decided action in order to manage this. And having that kind of knowledge has been found out, it really works for ourselves. And it rebuilds our foundations for hope when we ask ourselves, I feel hopelessness, like, why am I feeling this way? There can be skills gained in this stress response, and it can be managed in a very healthy way. When we feel rage rush inside of us, it takes about 90 seconds for that flood and that rush through the body to happen. So how can we let that happen and not add to it? Not add other layers onto it? Not make it mean like, oh no, it's here, and kind of let our minds run away with it, causing us more 90 seconds and then another 90 seconds and then another 90 seconds till you've been in it for hours. Knowing that the process will leave, like it will process through and leave, and talking to ourselves and being there for ourselves when we don't have the ability to stop it right then, because physiologically you can't stop it right when it happens. Breathing deeply is the easiest number one that gets you out of that the soonest. All the tricks out there, big deep breaths, are what get you into that better system. But it gets you regulated and gets your nerves down. It gets you from the downstairs brain to the upstairs brain. And you can practice after that flood and the rush leaving your body in the times that you're calm, in between all of those anxiety and depressive ways and feelings of hopelessness and devastation and despair. When you integrate happy moments from visualizing, it's a very powerful way to see yourself as not having this depression and anxiety hold you anymore, and kind of loosening your grip on it. Where do you have some inspired action? Where can you make a goal to be on the other side of this? Can you visualize yourself getting through this and being on the other side of it? And if hope is a muscle, then what kind of heavy lifting do we need to do in between these episodes that we have? And what kind of a routine and implementing these things that we need to put in our space in order for us to lift the heavy, heavy feelings when we get there? Or go doing little reps in between, because I can't hand you a 50-pound weight and just say, okay, go lift it. You have to start with some lighter ones and do lots of reps to get to the point you can actually pick the 50 up once. And we visualize being on the other side of it, and then we see what's in between the other side of it and where you are now that may stop you. I'll tell you some of the stuff that stops you. Ruminations, spinning on our own problems and failures. That's a big one for all of us, which we're totally in control of what we let run through our mind. We are not our thoughts. We get to choose our thoughts. They're going to come in there, and the ones that we use most are going to be most prominent. And they seem true, but most of them are just what we've decided on ahead of time or what's been practiced most, so we can also decide more helpful ones in its place. So we're going to choose, like, thoughts do you have? How can you not ruminate and spin out in your problems? What are you going to do to interrupt that cycle? And we can start to make a strategy plan. Then this is what I do in my one-on-one coaching. And throughout the class, we have one-on-one coachings with every lesson. It's just to make sure that each student gets specific implementation in all these concepts. There are 6 little steps. And it's so we can decide on more helpful ways to be and practice those helpful ways. Practice happiness, practice hope. Because there's so many times we just default to despair, default to despair. So we have to interrupt it and do something about it. And we have a culture, honestly, that teaches us hopelessness. We need skills to offset it, because you're going to need those skills. Like, you're going to have more hopelessness than happiness if you don't intentionally do something. So parents and leaders have to model these things for everyone else as well. If you're a caregiver, if you're a leader, if you are in people management at all, no one teaches us how to hope. All we live in is like we. So we're going to try to undo that, right? And the easiest way to redo this is to look at any challenge you have had in the past. How did you manage that? We've all been through many, many things in our life. Like I started out saying, you could teach me some stuff, right? You teach me how you got the grit through that thing that you went through. And you go write that story and show yourself, what skills did you need to get through that? What did you learn through that you can now use in this situation? And was it a healthy skill? And where was it healthy? And where did it get unhealthy and maybe lead you away? But you're on the other side of it now. And you have these evidences from your past, so pull from those. How can you put those skills that you just had into this situation and make it even better? We get really good at what we try most, so let's do it. What habits can you put in place that you've already done that worked for you to practice happiness more often coming up? We have to get those endorphins up. We have to see happiness come up more often. We have to have those responses. We have to plan for them, make room for them, and make them happen in our lives. And I know that's the last thing you want to do when it gets real. It gets really bad out there and you're like, that's what I want to do. I want to practice my happiness right now. I just want to practice hope, right? Nobody's saying that. But you have to get there incrementally on the in-between moments in order to withstand when it actually does happen. And we just get intentional in between with play. We have to lighten it up a little bit more, have more planned times for games, and intersect those difficult times that come in by reaffirming our happiness, because it's not just going to happen. You're going to default to hopelessness. That's what's going to happen. So we have to create these moments where we interrupt that cycle and do something different. And in the future, when crap happens, you now have on your mind the written down, the times you got through and what you did that made it so awesome. And you've gotten really specific about it. And you bring that like happiness story with you and that hope story with you. And that's your plan for moving forward in life. The key here to your universe is knowing what motivates you, knowing how you respond, knowing where your calm is, where your peace is, knowing you specifically. And I think that's the beauty of my course, is when you know how to tap into yourself to give yourself the best level of care and attention, then nothing outside of you can change that. Did you know nothing can reach inside you unless you give it permission? All the hurt we hold, we've chosen to let in. And a lot of times we keep hurting ourselves with it because we just allow it to be there. Right? Not anymore. Are you over it yet? There will be no end to troubles and hard times, I can promise you that, which sounds awful, but it's getting better at not letting it in and not letting it take you down and really fortifying inside that gets you out of it. Your overcoming things is not a one-time event. It's a practice. It's not like, oh, I overcame that, so I never have to do it again. It's not like this next level of grit, right? It's a decided and implemented process of letting go and doing differently because you want to. And as a culture, because we're being taught to be hopeless and we're being taught to see what's wrong, we just don't have that ability yet. And don't be hard on yourself, because we can build upon these studies that have been proven, and we can overcome when we believe that we can overcome. That's when we're open to it. When you actually believe, like, okay, I can overcome this. If I do these things, this sounds, I don't know when I'll get there, but I'm just going to move slowly, because when I get there, it's for good. And when we're up against it, something hard, we have compassion and we can carry ourselves through with, like, this is really hard for you. I can see this is hard for you. I got you. And we can get to the other side of this. Just reassurance for yourself keeps you out of that hopelessness, out of that despair, out of the helplessness. We just need to exercise it. You just need to pick up the weights and start doing some lifting. So as managers and leaders and parents and caregivers, we write our own story, our own hope story. And we use that as our own inspiration for where our happy thoughts and happy places are and what we're going to do. And then when we can do this, we can teach this. We can be extra diligent about taking care of our outlooks and caring for our health and our well-being and being on a bigger level than just the self-care trends like the bubble baths and getting your nails done. This is like deep inner work. And this is where it really matters. This is where the rubber meets the road. That sentence is on my mind. So many stresses, so many challenges, and managing others. And I know you have a lot. And I think you're doing it because you're here. You're responsible for so many things to get done and so many people, right? To be showing up and to make it all line out. So just be compassionate when you're in your downstairs brain and you're not operating really where you want to be yet, and be compassionate when they're in their downstairs brain. And as you teach them, they can even be like, you're in your downstairs brain. And then it kind of makes it fun. It lightens the mood because playtime and lightheartedness and just knowing that this isn't this isn't an end all for anything. We always have a next moment, and just kind of make it normalize, right? We're not going to add any layers onto it here, or like there's not going to be any judgment or pretending that we're perfect or expecting them to be perfect. That there's none of that. We're going to handle ourselves better. We're going to support others better, the people that we manage. And that's how we all get good at this. We all get good at this by doing it. Leaders have the ability to manage themselves because they're human too. And we give others the ability to manage themselves because they're human. And we can't expect more from anyone than we are willing to rise to. Our phones are just training our brains for addiction. And we spend most of our time putting our focus out there with what's wrong in the world. And the last episode I talked about perfectionism. All of it is just about managing ourselves so we don't go down some rabbit hole of not being able to show up really well, right? It's not about getting rid of the phones. It's about practicing these skills extra to get through the challenges and increase our capacity for happiness, increase that endorphin, and having happiness more often allows us to be happy more often. So we're going to choose it instead of choosing the misery and that awful rinse and repeat. A resilient team, a resilient family, a resilient household and workplace career is ones who can navigate challenges and land on togetherness on the other side together. Togetherness. And use it to grow closer in the meantime. So learn something about hope. I hope you learned a lot just now, and you can go find and learn more about your hope scale as you look it up on the internet. And allowing people to have this in their lives with more happiness and hope and kind of fostering that as the leader wherever you are helps you to be able to collaborate with those and win over their influence. Right? Your influence wins them over. That's what I meant to say. And this emotion brings big success to creativity and everybody being able to show up as themselves and choose to be there and choose to want to do it and do better and raise each other up. This is just the way it's done. So if you thought about anyone while you were listening, please share it because that's how heaven reaches us. And reach out to me if you want to know what this looks like for you in your life. And we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.